This is the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Your life connected. The Drew Mariani Show on Relevant Radio.
Relevant's here because we consider you family. Right? We do deeply care about you. I pray for you every day. I've got to give props. Just a moment, my colleague, Preston Allex, is going to be in the studio. He's our chief financial officer, and he's really been the tip of the spear on a program, which I want to introduce you to. I've talked about it in the past, but I just think it is a game changer. And Relevant, Father Rocky has got this philosophy that the things of God should be free. With the books that we often give away and things along those lines, that's the way it works. Well, Relevant Radio is also presenting you something else, which I think is absolutely free and is going to be a blessing to you and to your family. And I'm talking about a website that we created called Catholic Legacy. And I invited Preston to stop by the studio because in light of these wildfires that have just taken dozens of lives now out on the West Coast and devoured homes, surveys show right now that there's anywhere between, I think, 55 and 68% of Americans that do not have a will. And you might be thinking, well, I'm 18 years old. I'm 26. I'm 30. Do I really need one? Yeah, you do. Because, again, we don't know the day or that hour. You don't know when God's going to call you home. And if you have a family, if you have loved ones, you really should take advantage of this will. Over the holidays, I went through CatholicLegacy.com and I said to my wife, Kathy, Kathy, look, we should really make sure our funeral's taken care of. We should make sure that I have an end-of-life directive. I went to Relevance to see how it was different from the one that my attorney gave to me a decade ago, right? And I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. And we'll go through some of this. And you can also make your will there. Simple question and answer formula for you. Preston's in studio with me today. And Preston, I'm glad you came back. In light of all that we're seeing, it makes me think of how fragile and vulnerable life is. And people think, I'll do this later. Don't put off tomorrow what you can do today.
No, and you said sometimes people don't think they need this. There's kind of two overarching kind of ideas behind the will. One, it's to designate where your stuff is going to go. Your all your belongings, your assets, your cash, your retirement funds, all these things. Who are they going to go to? But then the other part is it's giving someone the ability to unwind your estate. And I say estate because that's a general term, but it's unwind if you have a bank account, if you have a mortgage, if you have a car, do you have a Netflix subscription? Someone needs to cancel that. Someone needs to get access to your bank account and unwind your life. Anybody here listening that has a bank account, has a subscription to something, has a house or a car or anything, they need a will in order to give the ones around them the ability to take care of those things in their life without having a painstaking, difficult process through prorate. So the will makes it so much easier, and it's just a gift to the people that you love. And if you have children, if you have pets, you have a duty to have a will to make sure that they're taken care of and that their time of grieving is not going to be spent in fighting over who gets the kids. It's being spent transitioning into a new part of life. And that's so important. And like you said, Drew, we do not know the day or the hour. We just heard this tragic accident down in California. Everybody in the car died except for a young child. And now that child's alone, and that family didn't have a will. And so now it's through the prorate, it's the courts. It's not an easy process to make those decisions when the family and the parents did not have it written down. CatholicLegacy.com makes it easier than anything you'll find online or anywhere else. It's just you go online, you sign up, you answer some questions, and you have a will that you can sign. It's that simple.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this, but really, you want to give a blessing to your family, have a will. It's one of the most important legal documents you can have. Yep. I was executor for my parents' will. Yep. It's a lot of work. Right? You can hire an attorney, right? You can, which is it could get very expensive. Yeah. And creating a will could be very expensive, and that's kind of the beauty of what we're doing here. This is Relevant's gift to you. This costs you $0. I'm telling you. Yeah. Check it out. If you don't have a will, it's absolutely free. You go to CatholicLegacy.com.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. You know, we talked to the attorneys so to make it a lot easier. So all the stuff we had was vetted by multiple attorneys. Yep. But that's not to say I don't want you to use an attorney. If you can afford an attorney and you have time to meet with an attorney, do it. Or go to our CatholicLegacy.com, fill it out, and then go to the attorney and it will speed up the process. Yep. You won't have to pay as much in billable hours. So there's advantages there. And then also there's things on that website that you won't find in an attorney's office, a funeral plan, the Catholic healthcare directive, and even some of the things of the will that we incorporate that are more Catholic centered. I mean, even this question of would you like to have a reserve fund for mass is said for your soul.
Yeah, that's critical.
I mean, it's such a nice little thing, but
so
it's
when
important.
I did my will before on that point, I had said it to the attorney who was doing this is a decade ago or whenever I did the will. And the guy was like, yeah, you really want to put that in there? He says, just tell your kids you want it. They'll do it for you. No. I mean, you go to your attorney, you might forget. You got so many things you're thinking about that may never make it into your will. Yeah. And you may not have those masses offered.
Yeah, it's important.
Which I love because you also created in this Catholic Legacy application, if you will, for will, end of life documents and for your funeral. The opportunity to let your heirs know, hey, I want Gregorian Masses said, or I want Masses said, or whatever you want. Yeah. You can have specific requests put in there, which I think is so great. So if you don't have a will, most people think, I don't really need a will. I'll just tell my kids, you have this, you have that, and they'll take care of it. What happens if somebody doesn't have a will? I mean, why does that become such a problem?
Depending on the state, but whether you have a will or not, a lot of times it still will go through probate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes with a will in states, you can avoid and do what's called like independent administration outside of court. And if you can get to that state, and we actually have that as a part of the will process where you can actually select that, it just makes everything so much easier. You can just, the executor can go in and make decisions and say, hey, Sally should get mom's rosary and Billy will get mom's car and, Jimmy gets mom's house and, just fulfills all these things that need to be dealt with. And so having the will is so much easier on the loved ones. It's not about you. It's about your loved ones. If you care about them, go and do it. And if you're like, I can't afford one or it's too hard, just go to CatholicLegacy.com. That's why we made it so easy. And that's why we do this as a part of our mission is because we want to help people prepare for the future. And we want to encourage them to understand Catholic Church teaching. So this is especially true in the Catholic Health Directive and the funeral plan. We have a lot of great teachings on funeral plan and funeral mass. And, there's little help tips on all these different questions that you can click a little question mark and you're like, what is an executor? As you mentioned earlier, you said you're an executor. If you have no idea what an executor is, we tell you with a little help tip along the way, and you can have all the understandings that you need right there as you're filling out the will. So that way you're not having to go and Google these things and try and figure it out. It's all there. Super simple. And I would say this is a New Year's resolution. Make a plan to get this done by the end of this week.
And best way to do that? How do you tap into it again?
It's just literally CatholicLegacy.com. Click sign up and away you go.
Tucson, Arizona. Brianna, hi. You're on with Preston Allex.
Hi. Thanks so much for taking my call. I just have a question regarding if in a will that I would go and make with you guys, if I could put where my kids would go, like who would be taking care of them, and if that would like hold up if, say, God forbid, my husband and I pass away at the same time, if that holds up in, court or wherever you go to do all that kind of stuff.
So, I would say two things. One, creating the will is one thing. You also have to have it signed properly. So we give instructions. So in order for the will to be valid, you have to have it signed properly. But certainly we allow you to have guardianship provisions where you say, I want this person to go. We also have a clause because we recognize the importance of having a father and a mother figure in a person's life. Let's say I'm going to use a personal example. I leave as guardian of my kids, my brother and my sister-in-law. But let's say my brother passes away before I do. Yep. Now I can actually have it go to my backup guardians that maybe still be in a married, established couple. Let's say my other sister and brother-in-law now become the guardians because I want my kids to be raised in a home with both a father and a mother figure. You can actually kind of set that up in the CatholicLegacy.com platform. Super easy. So you can identify who it is, and we do have some simultaneous death clauses that can be incorporated well in the case of both parents dying at the same time.
Brianna, thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks.
I appreciate the call.
So much.
Yeah, you got it. How often should your will be updated? Like I said, mine was 10 years ago. So over the holidays, because Relevant has done this. Yeah. I thought it's free. Let me look. And what's cool about the Relevant Legacy app, you might be listening and say, I already have a will, so this doesn't really relate to me. Well, so do I, right? I had a will. I have 5 kids. I had, a house, et cetera. There are things, assets you want to make sure are taken. And also, so over the holidays anyway, rather than get too off track, I thought, let me just go through this what you can do here is you can print out whatever you want to do with the will, with the end of life directive, and with the funeral. And of course, you can go and get all that notarized. We could talk about that, but you can compare it to what you had before.
Yeah.
And you might say, oh my gosh, I didn't have this in the other will, or oh, I forgot to add this. So it's great to cross-check that. And life changes. I mean, you might have had your will done 20 years ago. They should be updated, shouldn't they?
They should. And you'd be surprised who you chose 20 years ago for guardians for your kids. Might not be the same people you want to choose today.
True.
You never know. People change. Your life changes. Right. Proximity to others changes. So sometimes that is important. But especially if you get married, that's probably the most important thing. If you're married, you should update a will. Right. If you have a child, especially a firstborn child, you definitely need to update your will because you want to have those guardianship provisions. And let's say you're...
Yep.
You've gotten a little bit older and you're at a life stage where you have more assets.
Yep.
You might be at a point where, you know what, I want to give back to God. I want to actually leave some money to charity. I couldn't do that when I was in my 30s because I didn't have enough assets. I wanted all to go to my kids. But now I'm older. Right. I can give 10% to charity. So now this might be a time to go in and update your will so that way you can actually leave a lasting legacy where you're giving back to God and you're actually being a good steward of the resources God has entrusted in your life.
Yeah. Maybe it's your parish. Maybe it's a pro-life cause. Yeah. Maybe it's Catholic evangelization, like Relevant Radio. I'll put a plug in for that.
Yeah, we'd love it if you leave a bequest to us. We saw a record number of bequests this past year.
That's great.
It actually, Father likes to point out how it equals about the same amount of money that we spent on the National Eucharistic Congress. Yep. So we think it was just God blessing us for us going all in on that event.
And when you pass away like that and your gift keeps giving, I mean, it's so important. I'd like to know that, the seeds of the faith continue to be planted.
Absolutely.
Annalise, Manchester, New Hampshire. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for the program.
You're welcome.
Question is, how to notarize document that we made on the website? Have to print it and take it to someone else to notarize it?
Great question. So if you had trouble hearing that, she says, after you do this on the app, you print it out. Does it have to be notarized?
Yeah. So to my knowledge, every state requires a will to be notarized. And it's important to note that two things. You cannot do an electric signature on wills. They're exempt from the federal law that allows electronic signatures. And two, to my knowledge, all the states want you to have a witness or two witnesses. So we have it where you print out the document and on the last page, it's a signature page. You bring that in to the notary and you get two witnesses to sign with you. Now, those witnesses do not have to be someone you know. I'm going to be honest with you. I just went into a UPS store where they had a notary and they had two employees. I had the two employees signed as witnesses, and the notary signed, and because they just have to sign that you signed it. That's all that they're a witness to, is that you signed the document. They look at your ID. The notary checks their IDs, and now your will is completely and totally valid. And so that's kind of a simple example. Sometimes they have relationships with banks where they go into a bank. Sometimes you have friends that you want to go to. You have a neighbor. You have other people that can come and support you. But the notary service is very important because you need to make sure that this is real and there's no fraud happening, because fraud can happen so easily with wills. That's why the notary is there is important.
Elise, thank you very much for that call. Great question. Simple to do, as you point out, and really inexpensive. Just go, as you pointed out, to go and get it notarized. Yeah. In some places, you might even get free notary. This comes from Linda in Chandler, Arizona. Hi, Linda.
Yeah.
Hi. Hey, I have a daughter who has multiple sclerosis, and I heard about a special needs trust.
Yeah.
She's in her 40s, and I was just wondering, how do I go about doing that? And can I do it on this CatholicLegacy.com?
Yeah. So it's what we'll do is we'll allow you to select that you want a special needs trust set up at the time of your death for this person, based on what you save. Like, I want to leave all my money. So it actually says when you say you have children, we ask, are they under 18 or do they have special needs? And if you check that they have special needs, now you could set up this kind of provision for them. It doesn't actually create a special needs trust. It doesn't create something that you can use right now live. That's something you'd have to go to an attorney for or somewhere else. But this would at least allow it if upon your death, the executor could make sure that your son or daughter who has special needs is taken care of.
So I only have about a minute for you. So let me give you final thoughts to all who are listening.
Yeah, I just want to say this is a gift to you. Relevant Radio developed this as a part of our mission to help people prepare for the end-of-life issues that through a Catholic lens. And so we're here to help you. We're here to answer your questions. And ultimately, Free resource, CatholicLegacy.com. Plan your will, plan your funeral, and get your healthcare directive and medical power of attorney taken care of.
Sounds great. Preston, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
I know you're helping a lot of people. I'm grateful to be part of it as well. Hey, like what you just heard? Then share it with your family and friends. And thanks for listening.